Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the ICT podcast, Counter-Terrorism Today. I'm Itai Hanman, and we continue with our series of trying to understand how practitioners, academics, scholars, everyone involved in the fight against terrorism are doing their jobs in this COVID-19 era. It is an unprecedented time. All industries have come to a halt. However, security, national security, terrorism, counterterrorism, it does not stop. And we are back with another wonderful edition, and I am very honored to have on our program today a colleague of mine that I have the pleasure of working with, one of the smartest, most intelligent women that I have ever come across, Dr. Liram Stenzler-Koblentz. She's a researcher and at the ICT and an international relations manager at the ICT. She is an author of many publications. She's been awarded a prize for her unique research in the field of terrorism on behalf of the Inbar Fund and the Intelligence Heritage Center. Dr. Liram Stenzler-Koblentz, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Very good. And thanks for having me today.
It's really
My
a
pleasure.
pleasure. It's really my pleasure to have you on the program. It has been a long time coming. I know how busy you are, family and work, and let's just start there quickly to make sure everyone is okay, healthy, and safe at your household.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wonderful. It's so glad to hear it. And it's wonderful to be able to see you as we've been months apart. Normally we work a few feet apart from one another, and I haven't seen you in several months now. So it's a true
Yeah.
pleasure to see you again and bring you on and talk about your latest work that you have written about. You recently published an article entitled "The Far Right Leverages COVID-19 Pandemic to Gain Influence and Encourage Violence." Can you explain to us a little bit about the article, how you came to decide to write on that specific topic, and what were some of the interesting things you learned?
Sure. So, the far right is a very wide phenomenon, very interesting one. That's what I think. From time to time, I used to search the Global Terrorism Index, and I searched the final index of 2019 and find out that over the past 5 years, in places like North America, like Eastern Europe, the far right attacks increased by 300, and 20%.
Wow.
And the number of arrests linked to far right terrorism in Europe increased for the third year in a row. So I think it's a phenomenon that really worth to talk about. And during the corona pandemic, I searched right-wing Telegram channels. I searched internet forums. And it seems to me that they see the virus as a present from God, really as a very huge thing. So I wanted to try and find out why is that, and why do they find it so interesting, so important, and decided to write about it.
Wonderful. I do
So
recommend for everyone that hasn't had a chance to read it to go to the ICT website in their publications. Under publications, you will find Dr. Liram's latest article, and many of her other articles are there as well. But this latest one is there. I urge everyone to go read it. You made mention of something really interesting now, that the far right looks at the pandemic, the global pandemic, as a gift from God. Could you explain that a little bit to us?
yeah, of course. So they see the virus as a punishment for humanity, so they welcome it. And it's interesting because they see it as a punishment for everyone, even for them. They think that we turn our back to God, and we hate white people. We adore democratic values, and minorities and immigrants live freely in the world. So so the corona is a gift, therefore. That's what they are saying. And now it's an opportunity to create a new world order. So, and something that will suit their ideology, and they will be able to spread their ideology all over. So, yeah.
It's very interesting that they look at it from a perspective of a gift from God. And you just mentioned, interestingly enough, New World Order. And it's very interesting because it's not a phrase that people hear all too
Right.
often, and it's usually used in a very altruistic way. But it has been used on both ends of the spectrum. If you recall, after the fall of the Soviet Union, George Bush, President of the United States at the time, mentioned that now we're going to usher in a new world order, bring in everybody from a liberal new world order from that perspective. And now we're seeing another crisis in the world right now, ironically, on the opposite end, where everything is being shut down. People are being isolated, countries or borders are being shut, and we hear from far-right extremists that this will usher in the new world order. What does that mean exactly to the far-right extremists? What does a new world order look like to them?
You know, they want to see blood. They want to see death. They want to see diseases. They want to create something new. They want to close borders. They don't want immigrants. They want, many of them, of course, want to see white people. They don't want to see like Jewish and Black people and Asian. And that's one of the trends, like I saw when I wrote the article. They really encourage nationalism, and they blaming minorities in spreading this virus because, because they want to change the world order.
They want it to go back to a white supremacist world order in that sense?
Some of them, we have like few movements, and we have like lots of ideologies and different ideologies. But of course, few of them you can say that wants to see white world.
Yeah.
So they want to close borders. And now during the corona pandemic, it's exactly the right time, as I see it.
Yeah.
And you can see it all over. For example, I saw in the Twitter, someone just posted corona in your home because anti-white opened this border.
Yeah.
So that's what they're talking about all the time.
And when
And
you
of course, blaming minorities and spreading the virus.
right.
And yeah.
So now when we look at it, far right encompasses so much. People used to call the Tea Party far right in the United States. What does far right exactly mean? Because I think everyone has a different idea of what it means exactly. In your research, in the work that you were doing, what does far right necessarily mean?
I can't start and elaborate about all these ideologies, but the one that I mainly searched in, these specifically Telegram channels and all kinds of like forums as 4chan or 8chan or Darknet, or we are talking about white people that want to live the world for them. They want to see the world combined only from white people. That's what they're seeing. So they are, they really glad that like Black people are dying because of the coronavirus, for example.
Oh, so they must be
Or,
very happy with what's going on in the United States right now with all the
or
protests.
of course, because for example, they want to see the fall of the government. That's another thing that the extremists want to see. So they like the fact that these regimes are sensitive because of the corona pandemic, and they help them to be more sensitive in what they're spreading, their ideology they spread.
Very
So
interesting.
it's very interesting phenomenon. Yeah,
And your
very interesting one.
article, as I mentioned, is extremely interesting. And I identified in your article, well, I guess I read in your article, but you identified in your article four main trends. Could you elaborate a little bit about what these four main trends are?
Yeah, so as I said, the first one is the nationalism that, of course, we all understand. The second one, which is very interesting, is the increase of radicalization. So I see the coronavirus as a nesting ground for the far right. You know what I mean? They they see this chaos that started, that combined with all of negative emotions of people like loneliness, anger, frustrations, fear, and combine it with the fact that millions of people are required to social distancing. And in many cases, it requires them to stay at home, that provide a very wide platform for these far-right activities. And the need to stay at home increase the use and the exposure to online platforms. And to social media, such as what I mentioned, Twitter and Facebook and Telegram and YouTube and Darknet. And they learned how to use this advantage in order to recruit people and to spread their ideology all around. So that's the second trend. And then we have the third trend. And that's what we just started to talk about. They see the corona as punishment for society sins. And they said that the corona is punishment for all humanity. They welcome this punishment because they think that they worth it. They need to get it because of all the democratic values that we have here. And the corona is a gift, therefore, that they have to use and to create this new world order that we talked about. And then the fourth trend, which is a very disturbing one, let's say, um, they see the corona as a weapon for terror attacks. And they believe that it's a weapon in their hands, they can use it, and they encourage their supporters, through all kinds of posts and messages and forums to start in terror attacks, both in cyberspace and in the real world, by like touching and coughing and sneezing in mosques, in synagogues, in places like that. We can find messages, for example, that calls all kinds of far-right supporters to use this opportunity and to hurt those regimes in order to bring upon a collapse to global economy, for example. If you want, I can elaborate regarding those attacks.
Please,
But,
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about the cyberspace, for example, which is very interesting. But they usually use something called Zoom bombing, and they recognize the opportunity that now many people use the Zoom, as we are doing right now,
Yeah.
as a platform to communicate. And they are breaking into discussions and presenting, how will we call it, like offensive and inappropriate content,
Yes.
including anti-Semitic and racist content. And what I find, it helps them to put fear in worship centers, in minority schools, in religious organizations. I'll give you one example. A far-right activist just broke in a Zoom conference of Jewish students, and he took off his shirt and showed the Nazis' tattoos on his chest. So, it's not hurting, but it's really like making people um, feels more insecure during that time. So this is the main thing that they use, like in the cyberspace. And in the real world, of course, they just coughing and sneezing and do whatever a corona patient doing in his own house, but they are going all around and just doing it. So yeah. So that's
Very
what the fourth
interesting, the
trend.
tactics that they're using and how they go about it. And when you mentioned that everyone is at home, it's an opportunity to radicalize or recruit. How do they go about radicalizing and recruiting in this time? Is it just somebody goes onto a website and then sort of they know, okay, new person on the website, let's try to talk to them? Or is there a reaching out process? Is there a special group that if you're interested, you go and find it on Telegram and join? What's the process here?
Well, they're using all kinds of platforms, um, and you can just join these Telegram groups. That's what's very interesting. I mean, if you know where to look them, you can just join them, and you can see all these kind of messages. They just spread their ideology all over. You don't have to be a member in a movement in order to hear what they want to say. Um, and they are talking in all the posts they are publishing about death, about violence, um, and they are accusing all the time the minorities, in spreading the virus because it's part of what they are doing. And another interesting thing, for example, they are publishing recommendation for radical, for neo-Nazi content. So people will see, some things that they ask them to see, and they will learn about it. They specifically say in post that this is the correct time to spread their ideology. And another interesting thing is, for example, Facebook published a note saying that because of the coronavirus, they don't have enough people to block inappropriate, content. So they read it, like you and me can read it, and as a result, these people just called to spread their content in Facebook. They said, okay, they won't block us like fast enough, so we can spread our content right now. So that's another platform they're using.
It's very interesting because I was going to ask you if we know now that a lot of these social media corporations are cracking down on incitement and things like that, to the best of, I guess, we can ask for at this time and place. However, there's still quite a few underground social media platforms like Gab, etc., and other ones that you have made mention of. So I wanted to ask you, in your research, did you see that they are openly talking about this, or is it coded language?
You, I can't really say because it's different from post to post, but some of them said it really directly. Like, I feel lonely, I felt lonely all my life, and now it's the time for me to use the coronavirus as a weapon and go and spread my views, for example, or
Wow.
go and make a terror attack. Some of them are writing a post and then below that saying, haha, we were just laughing. Or FBI, if you are reading it, just for you to know, it's not serious. Or,
Mm.
so it's really different from post to post.
Very interesting
Yeah.
because it's tough to imagine that in today's day and age on Twitter or on Facebook you would be able to just say all these things as much as you want and preach hatred towards minorities and preach open
Right. But
rebellion
Twitter,
against the
but
government.
Twitter and Facebook is not the main tool because
No.
we can see it in Twitter, but the main tools are more like those anonymous forums,
Hmm.
like the 4chan or the 8chan, that they
Yeah.
feel more free to write their things, or or the darknet, for example, or places like that. So in Twitter, they will say, "Oh, we are so glad that this policeman, like black policeman, died from the coronavirus." But other things, they will write more, like those Zoom bombing and everything. It will be more in their forums.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And as we touched on radicalization, wanted to just quickly ask you if you think that the pandemic has actually helped them recruit and radicalize.
I think it make it much, much easier
Okay.
because so many people are staying at home because of the social distancing. So people are just, sit and look what to do. So they find that those platforms serving them the best. And as we are talking, we could just watching YouTube, for example, and then if someone will tell us, okay, go and find this channel or this channel, or we want you to hear about us, it will be such more, really, it's much, much easier than
Yeah.
what it was in the past.
So it's
Yeah,
much easier. And I don't know if you saw this in your research or not. So feel free to say no if you didn't see
sure.
this. But I
Sure.
was very curious because it just came up now as we were talking and what you were saying. And when you look at the recruitment and radicalization, and you had made mention that they blame minorities greatly, one of the things that we saw during the beginnings of the pandemic was people attacking normal, regular people. All of a sudden, were attacking in racist manners Asians specifically for thinking that they were bringing the Wuhan Corona COVID-19 virus at the time, whatever it was called, as we're going through the stages, um, and they got attacked. Do you think that the right wing noticed that they could tap into underlying racist feelings that people may have to help them recruit? Because, as you say, they're blaming minorities. So if they're blaming minorities, I'm sure there's a lot of people that also blame minorities without outwardly saying it. Are they able to tap into that underlying racism that exists potentially?
I didn't search it, but I think that the answer would be yes. I mean, I think that many people, deep in them, are feeling something against other people, and when you are just pushing the button, like the right button, you can make those people do whatever you want to, or listen to you, or and the problem is that even politicians use this word like Chinese virus, or the Hungarian prime minister, or other people, or just blame the minorities. So people can say, okay, if they're blaming the minorities, of course we can blame them. So it's only a thing of like really pushing the right button.
Very interesting that really all it's taking now is them to read the chessboard and press the right buttons. Um, Before we let you go, we've kept you quite a bit of time. Doing your research and writing your article, was there any lessons that you felt we could learn by this? Were there any practices that you feel maybe we need to put into place to help combat this dangerous ideology?
Um, I think it's important to raise awareness to the behavior of these right-wing extremists to prevent future tragedies. And one example that I found and talks about future danger is the use of the virus as a bioweapon.
Mhm.
And for example, one of the posts suggested that corona patients would freeze their bodily fluids at like -20, and they release it at the time and the place for their choice. So to start a new pandemic, and I think it's something that we should all be aware of. And we have to think therefore of how can we counter this kind of thinking and how we can defeat it. And when we have a knowledge, it's much easier to defeat it. So
Very
yeah,
interesting. I appreciate the answer. This has been a very sobering and enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time. For anyone that's come partway through and joining us and missed the introduction, this has been Dr. Liram Stenzler-Koblentz. She's a researcher and the internal relations manager at the ICT. She's an author of many publications. Go check them out at the ICT website. And as well, she is an award winner. She's picked up a prize for her unique research in the field of terrorism on behalf of the Inbal Fund and the Intelligence Heritage Center. Dr. Liram, thank you so much for taking the time for joining us here. This has been, as I said, a sobering and enlightening conversation. I truly appreciate you taking the time.
thank you so much. I enjoyed it, really. You had a great questions. So thank you.
Thank you. This has been a great
Thanks.
conversation, and I look forward to having you on again in the future and to discuss the future articles that you are about to write.
Me too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.